Right, we are back. All righty, so we're going to continue on. So in the proposal, you're going to ask, again, the similar questions. You're doing the intake report form. You're going to ask questions about, the details on the property. So what's the price point of the home? That's important for vacant because, as I shared earlier, the product that goes into a high-end, a luxury property is going to be different than what's in an average or a modest. So then your fees are going to be different. So I always like to know up front, if it's a higher end house, that will be priced differently. Are you the realtor, seller, or an investor? So what's their role? If it's the agent, have you talked with your seller about staging? Who's paying for the staging? So whoever's paying for the staging, that's your primary client. What's the finished square footage of the property? Are you planning on doing any work prior to listing? Do you need any resources? And then how do I access the house? So where I live, we have lock boxes, like contractor lock boxes, or just, lock box. You either punch it in or you dial. They have super keys, electronic lock boxes in a lot of states. Colorado happens to be a state. We're one of two states that refuses to go lockbox, electronic lockbox as standard. And I don't know why the agents keep fighting that. So anyhow, usually when they're doing remodeling or renovation, they're going to have a lockbox on that's a, contractor's lockbox. You either push the keys in, you dial it, you spin the dials. So you have to get access to the property. And then what's your target listing date? When are they hoping to come on the market? And then are there any special restrictions for deliveries? And that would be for like a gated community, a condo building. So when you're asked to do a condo and it's in a high-rise building, you're dealing with elevators, parking restrictions, delivery restrictions as far as timing of when you can get in that building. And those types of properties take 2 to 3 times as long to stage than a residential property where you can pull right up in front of the house and unload. So that's also a factor, but you need to ask the questions. If you are doing a condo building, sometimes they want to see a certificate of insurance. You need to ask, there's always somebody that's controlling the elevator. So I call it the elevator general. So who's the elevator general? Do they have, parameters? You can only deliver between 10 and 4 because they don't want to inconvenience the people that live in the building. They'll tell you have to park here. You're not allowed to go walk to the front of the building. So you got to find out what all those restrictions are. Oftentimes the agent doesn't even know because they may not have sold the property in the first place. So the homeowner, the property owner, usually is the one that understands or knows what the rules are, and it's usually HOA or the building has rules. So you do need to ask those questions, and then that will help you know how to be pricing your services for the proposal. Okay, where's the next page here? Why don't I see that? Oh, there we go. Okay. So when you're on the phone with them, you interview the seller or the agent by phone, you share how you work because they're going to want to know, well, I've never had this used staging before, or I haven't had to stage a property in a really long time, or how do you work? And so again, you're going to ask those questions. Remember to use your professional policies as far as payment. Let me tell you how I work. You have the 2 different scripts for a consultation versus the proposal. So I let them know how we work with the proposal. With vacant properties, typically we like to go out and take a look in person. We call it a preview. It's complimentary. I don't charge my clients to do that, but I do pay my team members to go out and take a look at your property. We're going to get pictures of the property, and then we're going to determine what rooms ideally should be staged. We'll prepare a proposal for you and get that to you via email. Within 24 to 48 hours, you'll have the pricing. And then we'll go over the information. We do a 30-day term, so you're not locked into a long-term rental of the items. And after the first month is met, we then prorate on a weekly basis. So you're not locked into the full next month if you don't need all of that time. That's my pitch. That's how we work. So you can actually, depending on your market, some stagers are doing 45-day terms, 60-day terms, whatever works for your market. The key is when somebody gets locked into like a 90-day term, if they happen to sell and they're ready to have you pick up at 45 days, they don't get the balance back, the 45-day balance back, because they've paid, they've agreed to pay for that. So they could possibly end up losing money by doing it that way. That's why I've always done a 30-day, because I don't want to lock them into a longer term. However, as the market has shifted, you could expect some of the higher end houses are going to probably sit 30, 60 to 90 days. So what I've done for a couple of clients recently is I'll say the first month is this amount, second month I'll take off 5% or 10% of the ongoing staging supply, and the third month, and then I'm going to cap it. I'm not going to continue to drop, but that helps show them that I understand the market has softened, and so this is what I'm willing to do, because I know you may have to keep things in place longer. We don't want to have them do is they stage it for the first month and then we go pick our stuff up and then it's just left empty because they didn't sell, but they don't want to keep things in place. And then that the pictures online will look good, but when buyers coming in, they're not going to have a great buyer experience. So figure out what works for your market. It also depends on loans. In California, for example, from what I've been told, is 45 days to close a loan. So that's why they're doing the 45-day staging minimum. And here we have loans, if it's all cash, whatever, they're closing loans really quickly. So depending on your market, that might also dictate the term of your staging. So you're at they preview the property, 10 to 15 minutes, you're not lingering. The longer you linger, especially if somebody's there, the more chances you're going to be asked to give them ideas. The sellers oftentimes are not at the property. Sometimes the agent wants to meet you there to get to know you. And again, you're just there to get pictures. You can chit chat, but you want to be mindful of time. If you need to, if you realize that they are asking a lot of questions, say, you know what, I only had 15 minutes allotted for this just to get pictures. I'd be happy to answer questions once I send the proposal. Be happy to answer all of those, but I have to get back. I have another appointment at, in 30 minutes. I have to get going. And that can be your way to get out of the property. Take notes if you want to. You can take notes. You get your pictures for sure, and then you're going to go back and prepare the proposal. Once the proposal is prepared, you're going to share that with the client. So the realtor, when they're paying for it, the seller never sees the proposal. If the seller's paying for you, both parties get a copy. So the seller's sign is going to be the one that would be the main client. That realtor also needs to be in the loop. Proposals are usually presented via email. Be sure to obtain the phone number and email for the person who's responsible for payment. So make sure you have that contact information. And then no see mores. And what that means is they want to see more. They want to see more of this. They want to see more of that. And they're just time wasters. So no see mores. So when you're preparing the proposal, this is present a flat fee, not hourly, from cover to cover. It could be up to 22 pages. Copies for you, the agent, and yourself. So you're all on the same page. This is a repeat of that other slide, I think. And then the bridge phrase, as soon as we're ready to work together as a team, I think that's the only thing that's added on here. So once you've sent the proposal off, again, as soon as we are ready to go to work together as a team, then I'll be sharing some of my ideas as far as staging. But again, you're in creative control in a vacant property. It's up to you to decide what comes in based on their time frame and budget. I've had clients say, well, we wanted this type of furniture. However, their budget didn't allow it. So it's like champagne taste on a beer budget. So it's like, I can get you any kind of furniture you want. I can source just about anything for furniture. However, they're going to pay for it. They're going to be paying a lot more for items that are harder to get, or they may take time to get items in. So it's not that I don't have that type of furniture that they want. It's that their budget didn't allow for me to provide that. So their budget has to be in line with the investment for staging. And it's a big education process, because most clients, most homeowners, they have no idea what to expect to pay for the staging. And the shows are not revealing, except for Flip or Flop. They were the only ones that were actually showing the number that the stagers actually got paid. So the parts of the proposal, the reason it can be up to 22 pages, you have a thank you letter, the benefits of staging, testimonial statistics, Rosie, before and after pictures. You could put pictures of their house, on a one page, room by room, list of the areas you're going to be staging the rooms, the actual proposal dollar amount page. You could put the home staging calculator page in there, which is on the Staging U, the vendor savings flyer, staged property portal information, what's an ASP, commitments required of the owner, staging is a tax deduction, and then the agreement. Now, the agreement I send once the client confirms pricing and the staging date. So I don't include that in the proposal. That's a separate document. But but you can see how your proposals can be very professional. They can be very, lengthy. But again, really where you're tweaking the information would be the client information and the pricing and the rooms to be staged. Once those are done, the rest of this really is a template. So you want to create 5 templates: a modest vacant, an average vacant, a luxury vacant, a downtown like urban condo, and then an occupied hands-on home staging template, because the pictures are going to be different for each one.
Jenny, could you please repeat again the different types, the different versions of proposal?
Yeah, so you want to do, so there's 5 different ones. You want to do a modest property vacant, an average vacant property, a luxury vacant property, like a downtown urban type property, like a condo. So the square footage may not be big, but because of where it's located, it's going to be probably a higher priced property than that same square footage in a residential house somewhere else. And then the occupied hands-on staging proposal.
Thank you.
These are the parts of the proposal that the seller or the agents, they do not see this. So for your planning purposes only, the totals, it's going to vary per project. It varies by how much you want to make personally. It varies with who's helping you, if anyone. It varies with the supplies required to complete the staging. And we're talking about supplies that get used up, moving materials and so forth. It varies with your other expenses involved. It varies with the needed rental furniture, yours or another vendor. So it's not, whereas consultations, we can come up with the fixed price pretty quickly. With the proposal, you really do have to see the property in person. Now, some stagers have a price per room. They have a price per square footage. They have different ways that they can price things. It's really hard to give an accurate number when you haven't seen the property in person. So I sometimes will give a range. However, if I give a range of like anywhere from 1,800 to 2,500 to stage your house, what are they going to hope that they're going to remember the 1,800 because it's a lower number? Then if I come in at 2,495, they're going to go, what? We thought it was 1,800. Well, I gave them the range, but they remembered the lower number. So when you're going to get these calls, can you just give me a price? Can you just give me an idea of how much it is? If it's a realtor asking you that question, say it's kind of the same thing. You know, if I asked you to list and sell my property, you could not give me the price because you haven't seen my house. You could do comps, you could kind of come up with a general idea, but you don't know what the condition of my home, if it's trashed or if it's updated. They could not come up with the price. You have to see it first. We're the same way. We have to see the house in order to really come up with the accurate pricing. So we will go do previews. If there's pictures online, I can use those. Sometimes they, if it's been listed before, so we could take a look. As long as nothing major has been done in the house, I can use those to do the proposal because I can see the size of the rooms and what's in there. But ideally in the beginning, it'd be a good idea for you to go take a look in person, walk the floor plan. As you're walking in, you're already starting to see, what's going to fit. What do I need to fit in this room? How much art do I need? Are there big walls? Are there lots of windows? So those are the things you're assessing when you're in that property. So as an example, if you say, I would like to make $1,000 profit off the staging, you have a new ASP who is learning. Their experience is their pay, so they're not going to make any money helping for the day, but they're learning. And for you guys, shadowing is really a valuable experience. If you can shadow another established stager in your area, you can learn a lot. And your goal is to watch and observe how they run the project, how they pack their items and so forth. You're learning. And it's fun to stage. We all get excited about that, but also use it as a learning experience for how you say, I really like how they run their process, or I would do things differently, whatever that means. So as a new person, maybe you go out a couple times at no pay, you're learning, and then you can start moving up the pay ladder based on your contribution and your experience. And then an experienced ASP might be 25 times 8 hours. That's pretty low as far as a rate. I pay flat rate per house per project, anywhere from 65 to 200 per stager per property. And then they also get paid in the warehouse for their time to plan and select everything. So whatever it is, then your total would be 1,200, 1,400, whatever for the proposal for that piece of it. And then you have to add in other elements. So then you're adding in, if you have, did you ever rent a truck or do you have your own vehicle? So rental, gas, fuel's gone way up. So what is that amount going to be? Are you for food? That would be like if you're going to do the realtors brokers tour or the open, you could contribute that. You could budget in some marketing with that. Your insurance and your supplies. So here's the plus the talent total. It's 1,700 is the total staging investment for the service side. And then now we've got to add in the items, your stuff or a third party. So if the third party, let me go back here. If the third party amount comes in at, $1,200 to rent items monthly, then that's $2,900 would be the initial payment. And then the ongoing monthly would be $1,200. Does that make sense? because the service side is paid one time. You're being paid upfront for your planning, the delivery, the staging, and the removal. That's being paid upfront. And then it's just the items. So then if the client comes back and says, well, gosh, we were hoping to be closer to 2,500. Now they're trying to shave 400 off the budget. Where are you going to get $400? Well, you could pay yourself less. You could pay your stager person less. You could do fewer rooms also if they're trying to squeeze that down. But there's, you have to take a look at the budget. Where can you possibly tighten things up? And if it's not doable based on your overhead and expenses and so forth, it's you're not going to pay them for the privilege of staging their property, and you don't want to lose money. You have a right to make a profit. So they may have a number in mind, but if it's not realistic to what really has to happen to stage their property properly, then it's not going to happen. So line item these things out to kind of figure out what my overall expenses are. And then there's different pricing models, which we're going to get into under the pricing section. Volume for value, list out your services and areas to be staged. This shows the seller and agent volume for value versus just one sentence saying, we're going to stage your house. So let's talk about items, inventory, your staging equipment. How we usually recommend staging pricing for items. And this is in your manuals. It's right after the proposal section. So it looks like this. Okay, so ideally 10 to 20% of the retail value for an item is what you're going to charge on a monthly basis for the client to have that in their property. 10 to 20% ideally of a retail value. So if you pay $500 for a couch, 10% is $50, 20% is $100. So how much can you in that couch then if you paid $50, if you only got $50 a month for that couch, it's going to take you 10 months to pay it off, and then it becomes a pure profit stream. You can get $100, it'll take you only 5 months to pay that off, but the first 5 times it's out, 5 months it's out, it's not making money. It's you're paying it off. Your clients are paying it off basically. So that's what you have to kind of take a look at. Unless you get a really smoking deal on some item that you can recoup that value the first time it's out that first month, most of the time it'll take several months for an item to pay for itself. So that's why when we're buying things, sourcing things, you want to get things that are not super trendy. And kind of going back to the colors, what I was talking about, blues, those were safe. Now, at the same time, blue was coming, the color that dusty mauve, that millennial pink became very popular. And I did not really buy anything. I had a couple of accent pillows, but I didn't buy a lot of the millennial pink because I thought, A, I don't think it's going to stick around very long. And B, it's very female. And so I thought I don't want to get too specific dictating who's going to be buying this property. So I tend to stay away from things that are ultra male, ultra female. And unless they could tell me for sure it was going to be a woman who's going to buy the property, I'm not going to just gear it towards that one demographic. So, and then millennial pink turned into a neutral. So they started calling it a neutral. So you see some furniture, the fabrics and so forth, and there's dusty versions of it, which is what I consider the colors of the year, or sort of a dusty version of the millennial pink, and then maybe a little bit deeper coral. So I did not invest in a lot of those pieces because I didn't want to be getting rid of them only after 2 years. In an ideal scenario, I would like a couch, for example, to be in rotation a minimum of 2 years and hopefully has a longer lifespan, because those are the most expensive pieces that we buy are the couches. And so I'd like them to have a long lifespan. So you can see in this example, there's a gold mirror, a small silver mirror, there's a chair, a sofa, there's a bedding in a bag, a pillow pack, and then 10 pieces of artwork. So in this example, the retail value is $1,825. At 20%, that'd be $365 to rent per month, and then at 10%, only $182.50. So as you're looking at your things, I used to itemize out literally everything. Like you have like 14 candles, you've got 10 accent pillows, and I'd line out them everything that they had in their houses. I would do a spreadsheet. You have 92 items from our company in your house. Well, that just took way too much time. And then it also showed like the pillow, each pillow was $1. A candle was 50 cents or something like that. And I thought, well, this is so stupid because it looks like I'm like nickel and diming these people. And so I stopped itemizing all of that out. And I just do sort of I can figure out the furniture pieces. I have formulas for that. And when it comes to the accessories, art, and decor, I just sort of do a lump sum based on the size of the house. Artwork, that can add up. So you could have a house that only needs 8 pieces of art or 26 pieces. It really depends. And so that's why it's important to see the house in person. artwork adds up, but the accessories and the decor, bedding, it's usually like $25 a month to rent the bedding, area rugs and things like that. You can sort of come up with an idea and then come up with sort of a lump sum. So I'll throw on $250 to $450 to $500 just extra that covers all of our stuff, the layers. And then the furniture, I have, I know how much that's going to be based on the rooms that we're doing and what we're putting in those.
Yeah. So Jenny, can I share a piece of information based on my
Sure.
experience? When it comes down to accessories, bedding, flowers, trees, and any of those little knickknacks, what I created there were packages. So for example, I knew that a bedroom would take the bedding, the pillows, a piece of artwork. Maybe I did my artwork separately because depending on the size of the art, medium, large, extra large. So I created like what I called a standardized pricing model. So I knew, this piece of art, like this huge one right here, it was XYZ dollar amount. So as I was walking in through the property and viewing it, I knew, well, that's going to be a large picture. So I kind of made a mental note and I was like, okay, I need that. So that number became part of the whole packaging. So taking the bedding and whatever accessories you're going to use for the bedding, like the linen, that's always going to be there. So creating that package gives you an idea of how much it's going to cost the client. And you could create those packages and really bulk it all up, and then add it on to your final pricing, to the major hardcore furniture, sofas, tables, lamps, etc. So that was a method that I used and it worked for me. And it simplified just the process because then I knew exactly how much the bedding was going to be the package. So in addition to, the artwork and the lamps and the nightstands and the bedding and the bed, I knew that was one price, and then add on that package for the for their soft goods, the pillows, the little decorating knickknacks and things like that. So it helped me out in the process and it expedited, as opposed when I first started, like Jenny said, you will itemize everything and it looks like you're nickel and diming, right?
Well, it's also people that go, well,
Time.
you can come get your candles and your whatever. We went and bought some stuff and they would like to start swapping stuff out. And so that eliminated that whole issue by not, plus it took way too much time. There are, as I said, inventory management systems where you can literally put everything you have right down to like, every little tchotchke that you might have in your warehouse or your inventory. I would not do that. I would just do the big stuff and then the artwork and then the accessory package, because I know that I might not charge enough for one client, but here I might make up the difference over here. So at the end of the year, we've made money off of our stuff. It's kind of a wash. But you have to know what your base prices are. Now, when it's your own items, you can control the pricing and you want to be on par with your other colleagues, their other competitors. You don't want to be going super cheap on your items. If you can get more, you want to get as much as you can. It's a business. So you need to find out what other people are charging. One of the great things about some of the other furniture rental companies is they actually have live online shopping. So you can actually create a cart, a basket. I would go through the exercise of like, if I pick a couch, accent chairs, pretend like you're staging a property, pull all the pieces together, see what does that total come up to? Because that's going to be who you're going to be working with for your property. So you have an idea of the pricing. And I'm more of a fan of, if I'm going to work with a third party company, I want to win the project and then come to them with project in hand and say, I've won this project. These are the things that I need. I've used their numbers as a framework. If I'm off by, $100 or whatever it is, they're not going to go, sorry, we're not going to work with you. I'm going to say, this is what I have. Let's make this work. Where can we save some money? Because there's always wiggle room with them too. But that'll give you an idea of what you should be charging. There are stagers who have not been taught to price their items. They put stuff in properties. They never make any money on the subsequent months and so forth, which is really foolish because that's a benefit that the seller does not have to go out and purchase all those items, that you're setting it up properly. So people should be paying, should be making money off of their items. That's why we have them. So go through the exercise, kind of figure out what your base pricing needs to be, and then you'll adjust it based on if it's a standard property, a modest, or a luxury. So the idea is to start small and grow. Orlando, can you just talk about stuff that the puppy escaped, so I have to go find what he's doing. If you can go ahead and just kind of talk about this really quickly, and I'll be right back.
Yes, well, here's my test, guys. I don't have the actual presentation, so let me try to pull it up real quick. Yes, so investing, it starts small, that's for sure. When you first start, you don't want to really go into buying a whole lot of big furniture, because that's just the overall cost of where you're going to keep it, how you're going to move it. So starting small with just little knickknacks, greenery, maybe lamps and beddings and decorative pillows, things that you can probably just haul into in your cart and move it over really easy. It's the smart way to go. So start small and then grow as your projects continue to come through.
You know,
What I used to do when I started from nothing, and like Jenny said, I raked my house. It was empty at one point, and so then I got out that little bit of money, and then reinvested in items that I needed. And as projects came through, then I started investing in purchasing furniture from either Cord or these different vendors. But as projects came through, then you start growing your business. So don't go out there. And my recommendation is don't go out there and start buying inventory. You got to first try it out.
Right.
Small little things that you can actually use and carry on your own personal car if that's the need. Just to make it easier, because it typically takes a good 1 to 3 years to kind of establish your business and your clientele. So it is a smart way to start. But if you have the money and the investment, go ahead.
This was my garage in California. So this is how I started. So I had some shelving, and then a lot of Pier 1 stuff, a lot of greenery used back then. I look at this now, it was a mess. And the tubs, we use clear tubs now so I can see inside, because one of these orange or the blue tubs, I used to bring every towel that I had. They'd be in one of these big bins. I would haul that whole thing into a house, and it's heavy. And I thought, finally one day I said, why am I bringing 15 sets of towels? I only need 1 or 2. So I would start to pack based on what I really needed. And so as we outgrew the garage, it got to the point where I had love seats and couches that were stacked up like this in the garage, and my husband couldn't park his car. So I went into a storage unit. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of stagers have storage units. So this is actually a warehouse with the storage units, 5 by 10, 10 by 15, 15 by 20, 20 by 30. So you can size up. The challenge with the storage unit is it's great to have, it organized in there, but as your business grows, we used to have, we had like 6 storage units. They were 20 by 30s. And so we had one that was just like the trees. They were all in the back. And so I'd be like, it was like a jungle. I'd be like, I'm going in. And I'm like, tie a rope around me, make sure that you can get me out. I'd go into the tree thing to get everything. And let's say that there's an item that's, you really want this particular staging item and it's buried in the back. You have to unload everything out of that stupid unit in order to get to that item. And so as we grew, I fought this tooth and nail. I freely admit that. I did not want to have a warehouse. I had my storage units, I had accessories. I had always rented third party for a lot of the big stuff as the business got established. I did third party, and I liked it because they would have the hassle of having to load up and deliver. I just could show up with the accessories and stuff, and it was easy to stage. However, I gave up a lot of money doing that because they were making the money on the big items, which is the bulk of the staging supply fee that gets charged. That's the bulk that goes towards the furniture. So I calculated I was running about $250,000 through a third-party rental company, and and I thought to myself, that's a lot of money that I could use to purchase items for myself. So then it became the hunt for a warehouse. There is education on that when that time comes. Again, you don't need to be doing that now. There's lots of people who have set up warehouses. There's a lot of education on it, how to source it, how to negotiate the lease and so forth. And then when you have the warehouse, all of this racking you have to purchase if it doesn't come included. So this is a very sizable warehouse. You can see the business, you want it to pay for the investment. So you can see you have, this is actually my warehouse. This is all the dishes set up here. So there's all the accessories are here on this side. This is tables and desks. And we have 1, 2, 3, I think we've got like 10 aisles or something. This is
Sandra's
warehouse. So all the artwork is here. And so our artwork is built into cubbies as well. So you have your pillows. And so you have things organized so you can see what you have. This is my warehouse for the artwork. I actually had them build partitions so that like these really tall pieces of art, we used to have them sticking out of the shelf and then you'd hit your head on them. So I'm like, we need to have enough height that these can go tall, but I don't want things leaning over because they'll break. So this is artwork, and then you have, your bedding section and then all your furniture. So this is, again, our warehouse. This is all the bar stools and chairs go all the way back. We have all the couches and stuff here, accent chairs on top. And it's taken a long time to get to this point. So don't expect this would happen overnight. The only way that would happen is if you bought an established company and then you were able to walk into something like this. So this is a warehouse. I have a really good rate on my warehouse. It's a really, really good deal because they're anywhere from like $1 per square foot to maybe $1.25, and you have to pay for utilities and stuff. This was an old Walgreens. So it's not a pretty warehouse. And, there were like pipes sticking out of the ground that we all tripped on. So things had to be fixed up. But that racking alone, just the racking is probably throughout the 16,000 square foot warehouse, it's probably about 30,000 just in racking.
And not to mention that you probably have to get inspected by the building inspector in your cities, and permissions, fire extinguishers, all those licensing fees are part of the operational costs that you have to tabulate into your pricing.
So that's where, so a lot of stagers, they'll look at these things and like, the pillow wall, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Because we all love to shop, it's like Mecca. You're like, oh my gosh, I can pick whatever I want. But the fact is that, you're purchasing all those items, and then you do have to keep them organized and clean, and there's constant repair. And because the furniture's not super well made, I'll find like a giant screw it'll just be on the ground. I'm like, well, this looks important. Where did this come from? Did it come out of a bed, a chair? And my guys are like, I don't know. And so I have a whole box of like parts that have come off the furniture, and nobody seems to know where they belong. Cushions go missing. So it's just this constant maintenance. And the reason I fought it is because I was a trainer and I was also involved in the association. I thought running a warehouse, it is almost like another job. It's like another entity of your company. And so it takes a big commitment to get it set up and to keep it running. And so now we have movers. So I have two guys that are dedicated to us. We have our truck that I lease. When I brought those in-house, that saved 6 figures by bringing the labor and the truck where I could control it. That did save me a lot of money. So as you grow, a lot of people, I started off, my first warehouse was 2,500 square feet. And then I I got another 2,500 that attached to it. This was in 2020. And then a year ago in November, moved into this space. And I first had half of the space. So I had about 6,000, maybe 7,000 square feet, not even half. And the other guy had 10,000. And then this guy was a former investor who got stuck with all the furniture. It's a long story, but anyhow, he wanted out to divest himself of this part of it. And so I am, now I have control of the whole warehouse. So I have all of the items. So it's a ton of stuff. And, some of it's not useful for staging because whoever bought the stuff, it was somebody purchasing that didn't understand style. So, but at least I have access to everything. I don't, I can get rid of stuff. So it's nice to have the volume of items. I know I'm not going to run out of furniture, which is great. But it's a big operation. There's a lot of logistics. We actually have scooters we ride because there's no bathroom in our warehouse, which my last one had 2 bathrooms. So we have to scooter to the back, go out. It's in a business complex, and it's 125 steps from the back door to the actual bathroom. So that's why I got the scooter, because when you got to go, you got to go.
That's smart.
Yeah. So this is what, and there's, again, different size warehouses. This is Sandra's pillow wall.
I remember that wall. I fixed that wall.
Mm-hmm.
I actually put in color coordination. That was
yeah. So we store our pillows by color as well. The team started just putting them randomly back, and I said no, and they started giving me excuses like, well, that's just all the time I had or whatever. So I stood there. It took me 20 minutes. I just moved all the pillows around, and I said, if you take the time to do it right, you don't have to take the time to do it over. And if I'm willing to do this, this is for the company. This is what the standard is. So making sure people are following protocol is really important. And so there's a lot more pictures. There's actually a Facebook group on warehouses. So as you get to that point with your business, again, there's lots of information and guidance you can get to get there, but your business needs to earn the right to have it. So a lot of us, we start off with our garages or our bedroom or our basement. We're storing our stuff there. We're the ones that are bringing everything in and out. I had kids. So from a very early age, I involved them in helping me with my business because it was a family business. It helped support the family. So they helped move things, load the cars. I remember when they were, 7 or 8 years old, one of my sons is like, Mommy, I can carry our area rug. It was like a 5x7 on his shoulder. And I was like, because I have 3 boys and then my daughter. So I was excited. And so through the years, they have all been part of the business. And I think it's important that children understand what it takes to be successful. They reap the benefit because they have, if you're making money, but they need to know that it takes hard work too. So, and then as I grew, I was able to add another stager on the team and then another one. And then we started hiring movers and so forth. So as I've gotten older, and I have been injured multiple times with staging. So I've had mostly broken toes. I've been cut multiple times, sliced, by sitting and walking past something. Like with one of them was a hood of a stove. It was that metal aluminum, and those edges are super sharp. And I remember I walked past it, and it just punctured me. And so I'm sorry, Cody's barking, and it punctured me. So anyhow, just as you grow and as you get older, you realize you don't have to be the one doing everything, and being able to hire it out. Because my hourly rate, and I learned this at one of the advanced stager trainings that, we were holding. One of the speakers said, if you can pay somebody, $25 or less to do per hour what you are doing, get it off your plate because your time is more valuable. And my response was, but by the time I tell them what I want, I could have had it done. And so she said, they were like, no, you need to delegate. So take things off your plate. If you can pay somebody the money to do something that you can offload and delegate to them, that'll free up your time so that your time can be focused more on client development and building the business versus doing the little piddly stuff. So I had to learn that the hard way, and it's actually very true to be able to offload things to other people is to delegate.
And it takes time because this is our baby, right? So letting go, it's part of the development and delegating duties that you don't want to do or that you're not good at it. I mean, we are good at certain things, not at everything. So operating a major operation like this, you have to learn how to let go and delegate and trust that person.
Right. And if you don't, you'll never get out of your own way. You will not grow. If you can't delegate, if you're not able to trust other people that you've taught them with the process, and also to release the control, when I look at pictures, the team always uploads pictures after the staging took place so I can see what the staging looked like. And then I do marketing based on what, the pictures and so forth. And so sometimes I'll see like, okay, they put an area rug in like under a bed, but instead of turning it horizontal, they had it vertical coming out. So it wasn't placed right. And so I remember I shared this at the Masters, and Sandra, this was in September, and she said, and you went over to that house and fixed that rug, didn't you? And I said, no. I said, it wasn't a reason the house would or wouldn't sell. It's just basically it would have been better turn the opposite way. But I'm not getting in my car and driving down to fix that rug. No, I'm not doing that. And so because my time is more valuable, and that's not a reason the house will or won't sell. And if it was a really high-end property and really particular, I probably would have gotten in my car to go do that. But we can't be so anal that we feel like we have to fix what the team is doing, because otherwise, why do I have people in place if I feel like I have to go fix everything that they're doing? So I'd rather use those as a learning experience, and I send them the picture and say, next time, turn it the other direction. This is why. Then they get it. So, but I'm not going to get in my car and drive an hour to go fix a rug. It's just, because the house is going to sell. That's the idea of the delegating and the releasing of the control. It needs to be to your standards. So if they did something that was really weird, or put something in the house, I'm like, no, that's not good enough. Or the artwork, if it's not hung properly, or there's not enough, then we have to go back to that property. So, but you want to be able to delegate.
Yeah. And starting from the beginning, try to create your standard operating procedures, envision how you're going to operate your own businesses and how do you see that process going. And from there, you can create standard policies, internal standard policies. So when you get to that point of hiring somebody in, they know what they need to do. There's always a variation. Obviously, it is a guideline, but at least they know the foundation, because everything can be changed. As you grow, your process probably will change, but having that foundation from the beginning, it's easier than just trying to formulate at a later time where you're busy and you're, trying to buy inventory, being on staging and doing all this other stuff to run the business. You won't have time. So taking the time now will be valuable. You'll invest all that time now and it'll become easier later.
And the SOP, so it's basically you have a process. So I have documented SOPs for the different positions in the company based on how I want things done. So you'll do the same. And then, and that's part of the scale program as well. We go over how to put those together, and then it includes a lot of the SOPs. But from the beginning, your standard operating procedures for doing a consultation, you have a lot of them in your manual, the different steps you're going to take. So you come up with those so that next, when you decide to add a team member, that time will come when you are maxed out on time and you're getting opportunities for staging, and it's either turn the business away or add to your team so that you can handle the growth. And so then that person, if you have it documented, when you have that, they can just look at that, follow what the protocol is versus you having to verbalize it and teach everybody all the time. It's like, here, it's written down for you, follow the instructions. And of course they would shadow you to see how you work as well. So those are really important.
There in the Staging University, there is a guideline on how to place furniture. That's a great tool to put as part of your SOP. And obviously it's going to differ from house to house, but at least there's a guideline there. So when if you haven't had the opportunity, go there and download it. It's really useful and you can use it in your SOP.
So the step 3 for the staging, you're going to get your agreements in place. So I call them an agreement because I'm not a licensed contractor. And so you're going to get that in place, you get paid. And then the date is confirmed. So I let my clients know, I'll put a tentative hold on a calendar that I know that I believe they're going to stage that day, but I don't confirm that until they've paid, and they know that. So if someone else comes in and wants that spot and this client hasn't paid yet, they're going to lose the spot. So as you get more productive, then you'll have that opportunity to say you need to, they might be paying you a week or 2 in advance to confirm that spot because they want to make sure that the staging happens on that day. You get access to the house. So again, lockbox code or electronic super keys, if you know what those are in the real estate world, they're one-day codes. They're electronic. So you put like enter the code and then the enter, and the thing buzzes and then the door pops open. So a lot of realtors use those in most states because what's good about them is it's through a service, and they can track who's coming in and when they leave when it gets shut back up again. Versus what our state does is, if you have a lockbox code, you have no way to track who's coming in or out unless there's a camera outside. And this is where windows get left open, lights get left on, the house is not secure. Who do you hold accountable for that? So the electronic boxes definitely let people have a record of in and out. Some states actually allow you to get access to get your own lock boxes, or access to on your phone. It's an app that if there is an electronic box, you put your phone to the box, and because you are approved to be able to do this, it'll actually automatically pop open for you. So depending on your state, that's joining your realtor board as an affiliate. Ask if they allow affiliates to also access the lock boxes like realtors have.
And the system, I think, is called Supra.
Supra.
In most states, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're going to coordinate the time frame with the real estate agent. So again, you want to be doing it ideally the day before pictures. I always give a big window because I don't want an audience. When people say, well, should I be at the house when you're there? No, we prefer to have our private creative time. And for liability reasons as well, our insurance covers our team and process, but not anybody else. And should they trip on something or get injured, we don't want that situation. But really what it's about is I don't want people watching every move we make. It's stressful to be, scrutinized. And oftentimes it's just because they're curious. But, an item for staging, I might go to 4 different rooms before it finally finds a home. And so there's this constant, and it's like organized chaos. Your furniture comes in, and then the bins of decor come in, and we're whipping things together and the artwork. And I don't want the client to see the process. I just want them to see the finished product. So they get to see that wow factor. So
they will take time away from you, productivity time.
Oh, they do. They chit chat too. We had a client that she just wouldn't leave. Yeah, and
time is money. At the end of the day, time is money.
I know, exactly. And I don't want to be rude, but it's like, lady, just quit talking. So, but you can set your policies. And so when they say, well, should we be at the house? Well, we don't really know. You don't know exactly when you're going to arrive. So I always give a window of like, we'll get there anywhere between 10 and 2. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to sit around the house for 4 hours if I'm the homeowner. So that seems to be effective to let them know that you don't need to be at the house. Sometimes the agent wants to be there if it's the first time working with you. And then you can say, well, time for us to have our private creative time. So you can leave, and then I'll let you know when we're finished. And I can send you some pictures of the staging as well. Take them on your cell phone and text it to them and say sneak peek or whatever. And then you're going to arrange the delivery of the items based on the schedule. You're going to load up the items that you're bringing, and then you're going to stage the property. So it's step by step. You can actually prep ahead of time. You know, we can actually pull things out that we're loading, you know, 2 days from now. We can actually create the staging piles and tag all the furniture so we're prepared, and we won't load it on the truck until the staging day.
I'm going to share a tip that I used to do and saves us a lot of money, a lot of time. After reviewing the property, doing the floor plan and taking pictures and everything, we would go back to the warehouse and actually create the design plan and start building the room. So we pack everything, all the furniture that goes to that room. It's all named where it goes. All the accessories were packed into a bin with their names and where they go, like whether it's the nightstands and the lamps and the dresser, for example, or any item. It was all tagged, and when the movers come in, it's all labeled. Every bin is labeled what room they go to. So when the delivery arrives, they know where that goes to, and then everything is loaded off the truck in their place, and then we get to work and stage. So there is no like, where do I put this? Where it's already designed pre-handed during our prep time at the warehouse. So when we get there, it's like quick. Let's go. Let's pack up whatever bins and let's go back to the warehouse if needed. Or
yeah, so the decisions on what you're bringing and what you're doing are made before you even get to the house. So that's why I said like 80% of the work is done before you step foot in the house. You're just executing the plan. And pack by the room. I always bring a little bit of extras just in case, you know, we need to add something breaks or whatever, but I don't bring absolutely everything that I have, because if it's there, the team will use everything, you know, we will overdo it. So pack by the room. We used to do like, this is the bedroom room, this is the bathrooms and so forth. That's the most efficient way to pack up. So things go right into that space. And what has evolved into is the bins all come in, they get unloaded usually in the kitchen counters, and then the team starts taking and creating the sub bins to take to the other areas of the decor. So we know like for every surface, we're going to use 3 items. When we have plenty of items, we'll do three things on a surface with the lamp. So it could be like a book, a bird, and a tchotchke or something. So I know if I'm doing a living room, I need 6 pieces of decor, plus I need the coffee table. That's 9 pieces of decor, plus the 2 lamps. So I know in my head what I need to grab. And then, you know, so for greenery, if I have a living room and a family room and a master bedroom, that's 6 end tables. That's 6 times 3, those 18 items. And out of that, probably 6 things of greenery, plus the 6 decor, like maybe books, and then 6 decor items. And so you can get very detailed for your planning so that when you're in the house, it's just efficient. You're just setting it up. And so because time is money. So after the staging is complete, you take your pictures. Even though they may have a photographer coming in, you want your own pictures for your marketing purposes, also to keep track of your items. Even though there's people that may have an inventory management system and they can tell where their things are. For insurance purposes, you want to take pictures of your items in these properties, because if something happens where there's a theft or a flood or something bad happens, you can show the insurance company that these items were in this property. You have proof. So always take pictures of all your items. Notify the seller and agent when it's done. They have showing instructions. The house goes up on the property portal. Agent starts marketing. And this is where you can extend your reach. If they're doing open houses, you can offer to bring cookies and juice or something, or food, or come hang out with them. Because people that are coming through the property, they may need a stager. The key is when you're in that mode, always get permission. Ask the agent if you'd like to, can I swing by for an hour and hang out with you? And usually they'll say fine. If it's a really busy open house, they've got a lot of people coming in. You don't want to be like positioning yourself at the door like, hi, I'm the stager. Always let that agent engage first. And then after they're done things that say, I staged the property, here's my card, or here's my information, you can chit chat. But make sure that you don't take time away that the listing agent is using to sell that property, because they'll get upset if they can't get to these clients because you're chit chatting with them. And then fine tuning a vacant house. We says every other week. What that means is, you know, based on your time and schedule, maybe you go back to make sure the items aren't being moved around, or things haven't gotten displaced or broken, dirty, especially for houses that are sitting for any length of time. The client ultimately is responsible for cleaning their property, because if their property is sitting 3, 4, 5 months, it's going to get dusty. So they should be having somebody go in there and clean, make sure everything looks good. Otherwise, that's a bad experience for buyers coming in. So it's not our responsibility to go dust everything. However, you do want to make sure it still looks in good condition. So some stagers just make a route. They go and they go look at their properties and make sure that things still look in order. And then you can also tell if things are missing or broken.
Also, since you mentioned that, and you potentially will be doing rounds, and make sure that you have access to that house, whether it's a lockbox, a key, at all times.
Yep.
As long as your inventory is in that house, you need to have access at all times up until the property you actually do the removal of the staging. It is very important. Sometimes it will lock you out if you don't ask for that key or the code. And
Yeah.
continuously ask. If you have a key, that's fine. And also make sure that there is an alarm in place. Do you need to activate it? What is the code? All those little details. Don't try to go into a property and the alarm is on and you don't know about it, and the police showed up. It happened to me.
Us too.
I'm not stealing anything.
These are my items. We're just picking them up. Yeah. So we're very true. And the key. So when I lived in California, we didn't have lock boxes. So I would have in my agreement that I would make a copy. We'd have a key that we would be given to the property, and we would return it upon successful pickup of our items. And so you can go make a copy of the key. If that's part of your agreement, you have a right to have that. Don't put the address of the key on the key, because if you lose the key, then somebody finds it, then they could go get into that house. And I also, when we moved out here, I stopped doing that process because we had the lock boxes, but my kids were younger in California when I was staging. And so I learned the hard way that I should not be responsible for the keys, because my boys were like raccoons, and anything shiny, little shiny object they would take. And so I remember having keys like in my cup holder in my car. And then they said, "Mommy, were those keys important?" And I'm like, "What do you mean were?" Why is this past tense?
Where they go?
They got dropped down some hole or a grate or whatever it is. And so I'm like, oh no. But yeah, you have a right to access your furniture. I had been locked out, couldn't get my stuff back. I actually had a client that she stole items that were the value of what she had paid for the staging. She took what she felt was the value of those items down, and she moved to Southern California, and we couldn't get into the property to get our stuff out. So in those situations, you then could either pursue them legally, do a small claims court or a lien or what have you. And I just chalk it up to a learning experience. I took it as a write-off, and I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen again, because I'm going to put this policy in place so that I'm never locked out of a property again.
Oh my God, I have to share this experience, true story. So I staged this property. The property, it was a multi-million dollar. So, those property tend to stay in the market a little bit longer. So finally, it was during Christmas time, and the homeowner actually had paid that month, right? So it carried over to January. And in December, close to, I guess, like New Year's, they closed they closed the deal. But I was not informed. So the new owner legally has the right to have access to that property. They use the furniture. They threw a party in the place. They brought family over, and then I'm always do a follow up, and I always check. So when I check on the MLS, property is sold. I'm like, wait a minute, I was not informed. And so I had to hunt down the new homeowner, explain that, listen, this is my furniture. I understand that you bought it, and they give me an excuse. So the original homeowner thought that because he paid for an entire new month, which was like at the beginning of mid of December, that he had until mid-January. But no, your property sold. And I'm like, okay, I have your credit card, so I either going to charge for the entire inventory that is in there, whatever costs me, or I need to talk to the new homeowner. And I couldn't find the homeowner. It was a back and forth. Luckily, I got in contact with him. I explained the situation. He was like, okay, no, I give him the option. You can buy everything that is here, or we come back. We need to remove it. So they decided to remove everything. And then they hire me back to give them consultations on how to design the house, reposition everything for them. But that's the experience. So you have to be constantly with realtors and the homeowners, following up via email, text, whatever method they preferred. because these situations will happen, and not all realtors communicate correctly, or the homeowner.
Right. You can, there's certain sites like Redfin, for example. If you stage a property and it's on Redfin, you can actually favorite that property and it'll tell you when there's a
Tell you.
status change. Because we have the same thing. It's a requirement in the agreement. They need to notify us. We have a 7-day pickup
Mhm.
notice before, or else they're going to get charged for renewal. If they notify us to pick up with less than 7 days, there's a $500 rush removal fee for us to get another truck and crew. All that's in there. And then there's still people like, oh my God, we totally spaced. We forgot to tell you we're closing today or we're closing tomorrow. And because what Orlando says is true, the buyer has possession. Anything in that property, technically, it's, theirs. So you have to get your stuff out. So you want to be in good communication with the agent, but you can also be proactive and look up the properties online to see what their status, what they're if they're pending, or and if they're pending, then you immediately have to call and say, when is your close date?
Close date, yeah. Give
And
me
also,
a close date. Just we got to put it on our books. Doesn't mean
Right.
we're going to remove the furniture. It means that we need to plan ahead.
right.
And luckily for that particular project in that situation, when the new homeowner decided to sell the property, I restaged the property. So it was a win-win situation. But
Yeah.
you go through this,
and you kept it positive too. You weren't like, oh my God, you owe me all this money because you had a party on my stuff. And of course, if they had damaged or soiled the furniture, they would have been responsible, or somebody would have had to pay for that because it's not intended for personal use. So, but just keep track. You can take responsibility, learn things. I know for me, I have a spreadsheet. We had up to 60 properties out at the same time over the summer. I think we're down to like 30 right now. That's I don't have time to make phone calls so the clients know it's their responsibility to notify me in writing that it's time to pick up. And if we cycle and they have not told me that and they're charged, there are no refunds. And that's also part of my agreements. There's no refunds. And once they've paid for the staging, by the way, too, there are no refunds. And this is important. When the house is currently for sale, they decide to stage it. You get the project, you're planning on doing it. And then like the night before, the day of the staging, oh my gosh, we got an offer. We don't need you to stage. And you've done all this planning and prep. You remember 80% of the work is done before you get to the house. And so when I did not have that as a policy, that there's no refunds, I got stuck. I'm like, I had planned for staging. I was planning on the income, and now the plug is pulled. And one of them, they actually told me the rental company that I was third partying, they were already en route. So I had to pay a restocking fee on that end. And so it wasn't a good situation because we were completely unprotected. So there are no refunds. Once the client commits and they sign the agreement, their payment is immediately processed in full. And so what I put in my information to the client is, if your house is currently listed for sale, it needs to go to the next buyer that steps foot in that door needs to see the staging. So there should be a no showings until this particular date. So they cancel the showings because they don't want to have somebody come in. They might get an offer, but they would have gotten a better offer should the person have seen it staged. So you would need to put all these parameters, these terms in your agreements, and they are enforceable. I use DocuSign for when I send the agreements out. They go through DocuSign. There's eSign. There's different companies that you can use. What I like about DocuSign or these online signing is they're secure. They're enforceable. They're a true legal document. So they would hold up if you ever had to go to court. They actually are binding. And so our agreement, it's, one-page agreement. There's, a lot of terms in there. I'd say probably close to 90% of the clients don't bother to read the content. They initial, they sign, and then it's this big surprise when one of the terms is enforced and they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, it was in the agreement. You also initialed it. So, it's not, to me, I'm thinking like, it's not my fault you didn't read what the agreement was all about. That's not wise in business, but I can't control that piece. They've signed it. The terms are enforceable. So, and then the DocuSign, then I have an ongoing record. I can pull that document up and their payment information is on there. So, but everything is secure. And it saves a heck of a lot of time versus me emailing the agreement. Then they have to print it off. Then they have to sign it. Then they have to try to scan it and they got to get it back to me via email. It just took a lot of time.
To another point that Jenny mentioned earlier, as far as getting pay up front, depending on how far our project was booked ahead of time, we would ask a deposit XYZ percentage. That's totally up to your decision ahead of time, just to secure the date and then 80% of what the job, the prep up time is, and then maybe 72 hours before the actual installation, then the balance due, but it has to be paid before we actually install. like 72 hours before. That was if it was a contract that was out in advance. But if it was, if a project is within 7 days, full payment needs to be received.
It's not, see, it's not subject to their approval because you have creative control.
Yes.
Staging selections are at the sole discretion of you and your company.
Mhm.
There'll be no substitutions or additions. So you have the creative control. When stagers have done a deposit and then collected the balance after the staging was complete, it was based on, oh, the client would come back, well, we like everything except we don't like this. We're not going to pay you the balance until you fix this or that. Or they go to run the final payment and the credit card declines because it's maxed out. And then now you're Guido the bill collector again, trying to get payment for the staging. So for a lot of those reasons, that's why you paid 100% up full. I know that the money is there. They've paid for it. We're good to go. Everything can be confirmed. We can start putting time and effort behind it. And we actually, I can see a house one day and stage it the next. We can respond really quickly. So in those instances, you're getting, you have 24 hours. The clients, we're cranking out the proposal and the agreement to get them to pay so we can actually stage the following day. And then I have with a couple of my investors, I've staged knowing that they just hadn't had time yet to get to that part of it, but I know that they will because we work together. But in general, get the money up front. I have had clients try to dispute on merchant fees, ongoing payments. And I've won. I've only had this happen to me twice. I've won both times because the agreements were airtight, because they had signed everything and they initialed. So the client might have been upset, but it's like, these were the terms and conditions you agreed to. So the credit card company awarded me the money. So that's why you want to have, play devil's advocate, think about like, what's the worst case scenarios that can happen? Think about how somebody might be able to take advantage of you, and some small percentage might happen, but put that in your agreement. So you're avoiding that particular situation. So your terms. And as far as payment, one of the things I learned from another stager who got burned is she had her in her agreement that client's going to use his credit card to pay me blah, blah, blah with that. And then the actual payment form, she didn't say it again on the payment form. She didn't say this card will be used to pay for the staging at this address for this amount of money, whatever. So he refused to pay her. And he said, I never said you could use that card for the staging, because the document that actually had the payment information, the processing that he signed, didn't say anything about what was going to be charged and what it was for.
Getting a credit card authorization form.
Yeah. So make sure that you tie everything. I tie the agreement to the proposal and the credit card form to the agreement. So everything, there's no question about what they're paying for and what they're getting. Just be really crystal.
And make sure that you run it through your legal advisor.
Yeah. You can have someone take a look at it. And we have sample agreements online. My agreement's on there, and my payment terms. So mine is only 2 pages. There's also agreement templates you can build. So we actually gave a bunch of agreements to attorneys. This is some years ago, and they came up with sort of canned paragraphs of terms and conditions. So you can kind of pull in the ones you can craft your own agreement. Some agreements people have are like 12 pages long because there's a lot of legalist stuff in there. And I made mine much simpler. There's a lot of content, so the font's pretty teeny, but it's just 2 pages because I don't want to scare people away. However, you have a right to build your agreement, protect your business, protect your process. So we have that on there that you can utilize too to build a template.
And every jurisdiction has their different rules and do's and don'ts. So it's always advisable to check with your legal attorney.
Yes.
And this is mostly for vacant side of business, correct, Jenny?
Yeah, but if you're doing a hands-on,
necessarily apply to a consultation or any of those services. But if you do work into a property where you're supplementing, they hire you to kind of spruce up the property, you may want to have a contract for that too.
But you should, for sure. Yeah. Anytime you're putting your items in a property, you would have a proposal. This is what it's going to cost. We'll bring artwork and decor and 2 end tables and lamps where you're going to line out, specify where rooms you're staging, put it in a proposal, and then the client agrees, you send out the agreement, they pay you, and then you stage. So it's the same process. The dollar amounts are usually smaller for those owner occupieds. However, you could have a client that's like, we just want you to do all of it. That could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to do an owner occupied hands-on. So again, anytime the consultation, you get paid at the time of service. I can invoice the clients for that one, or they can pay you ahead of time. That one's kind of flexible because it's a smaller amount we're dealing with. But when it comes to these owner occupied hands-on or the vacant properties, get paid upfront 100% before you get to the property. No money, no stagey. Right?
Yes.
Not showing up. All right, so let's talk about money. Show me the money. So let's go ahead and in your books, then we'll go, before we get to this page, let me go back one before I show you this one. So in the rest of your manual, we have commitments I ask of you. This is a document you could download from the university. You could put this in your proposals, and it's basically, you have your home professionally cleaned prior to staging. I actually have that as a provision. That's a professional policy. The house must be clean and stage ready. And if we show up and the property's not stage ready, like they're still working on it and it's not clean, there's a penalty for having to send the truck and the team out there, and then we'll reschedule the stages to the next available appointment. Because I don't want to put myself on dirty surfaces. And if they're still doing construction, investors were the notorious for this. I'd roll up, they were still putting cabinets in, the carpeting hadn't even been installed. And they were thinking, I'm going to bring furniture and get it set up. And that's just not possible. And so I've started with some of these repeat violators. Send me pictures to show me that the property really is ready. And then clean is a relative term, as you learned in class. And so professionally clean, having a company come in, I want the floors cleaned and the surfaces where we're putting our things. I don't want to put it on dirty surfaces, because then if they clean afterwards, the cleaners move our stuff around and they put their little stager hat on and they start shifting things around, and then it's not where I had it. And oftentimes, we're positioning things on purpose a certain way based on how we want a buyer to see something. Like, for example, a cookbook. I'll just use this as an example. Let's say you have a kitchen counter you're doing, and the buyers are going to walk into the property at a certain vantage point. You want to make sure that cookbook cover is facing out to where they're coming in the room, not this way where I get to see the ugly label and nothing behind. So you're always thinking about the vantage point of the buyer. When we do a bed setup, and let's say I have a tray with a book, like somebody's reading it, I'm going to turn that book out around, so it's not like I'm laying in bed reading. It's going to be like facing out this way, so the buyer gets to see what the pages of the magazine are, because it's from their perspective. So we're very intentional with how we place things. And when other people start moving our stuff around, I even have like, don't touch my stuff as one of my policies. So he's like, staging items are not to be moved or removed without express permission of you and your company, because you don't want your stuff moved. It could get damaged. And plus you put it in a particular place on purpose. So does that happen? Yes. Our agents sometimes turn into stagents, and they'll start, tweaking our staging around. And some stagers get really upset if they're, what they put in there, if they really do a number and overhaul, if they're moving the furniture around. It's like, that's a violation of what we agreed upon. And so you could go back and reset the scene, or just, make a mental note, like, I don't want to work with this person again, or what have you. You have to kind of decide how important it is for you to fix that situation, but they're not supposed to move things. And I actually had a lady that she was just hell bent on having, I think it was a piece of art or something she wanted moved. She was going to do it herself. And I said, if you break that piece of art, or if it was a piece of furniture, then you're going to purchase it. And I said, this is why we don't want people moving our things, because we want to be responsible for those. And I don't want that on the homeowner. And that stopped her in her tracks, because I said, you're not supposed to be doing this. And by the way, those agents that are doing that kind of thing, I make a big point when I teach the one day, they're not insured for staging. So if you have these agents, the stagents that go around and they're not officially stagers, and they're doing stuff in the properties, if even in their clients' houses, if they're moving furniture around, if they scratch the floor, if they break grandma's antique mirror, whatever it is, their E&O insurance does not cover them for the damage they just did in that property. They will be coming out of pocket for repair or replacement.
Or the homeowner will be responsible for it.
And their homeowner's going to be mad.
We typically, when we finish and we do the reveal, we specifically tell either the agent or the homeowner, if it's on site, don't move anything. Like you position your like you mentioned, your books and your pillows in a certain way from the buyer's perspective, right? Also, it helps when the photography comes in, the photographer, you design that room to be photographed at a certain angle for that purpose, because you want to project from that buyer's perspective. So we tell them, don't move anything, because it's intentionally put this way for these reasons. So it's a good line of communication to kind of express that, and just let them know, don't touch anything for the reasons that Jenny just mentioned. It is a liability.
And so, so your agreement, your terms will be in there. So stage ready, not still being constructed. They can't do construction or paint while their stuff's in there. I've had that happen. It amazes me how sometimes people are disrespectful to the things in the house, and they don't always know, where they came from and so forth. But I found paint splats all over my items. They didn't even bother to cover them up. I've had people stand on our furniture. I see big footprints. And so when we come back, if I see things like that, then there's a cleaning fee that's going to be charged or replacement. People just need to be respectful of the furniture because it's a big investment to do that. So the professional cleaning is important. That's something that as a stager, you could coordinate on behalf of the homeowner. So you know that it's done. So we actually started a cleaning company. It's called We Clean Colorado. And my son and his friend started it. And my son decided, he's like, I don't really want to do the cleaning business. And so, but regardless, it's, I have them in every proposal. We have the pricing for type of based on square footage. So I want to help them bring them business to these kids who are getting established, but it's also, then I know the house is going to be cleaned. So you could take that piece and say, one of the services we offer is we can coordinate the cleaning and the photography on behalf of your property. That takes that off the plate of the agent as well. Sometimes they're just like, you could handle it for me. That would be awesome. So think about other ways you can add value by taking other things off their plate, because to get a property ready to market, there's a lot of steps involved in that process, and anything we can do to help alleviate the stress from the agent will endear us to them more, which is important.
So guys, remember this at the very first day when we talked about this wheel and where the stager is somewhere around here in this process? And we have the stager, but we didn't see that we have like painters, cleaners, repair handymans, plumbers. This right here, you can have that under your belt and have that recommendation. So we talked about this, what Jenny's talking about. Mm-hmm. So it is here, and you can create additional income by referrals or providing that service yourself, creating a company like Jenny did for cleaning and incorporating that as part of your services. So this is where that section that Jenny's talking about.
And then even the photography. So my daughter, she loves photography. Of course, she stages, but we have a We Snap Colorado. I registered that one too, so that and she gets hired because it's like, and that is really helpful when they want her to do the pictures. Then I know that the photographer's not going to be rolling in while we're still staging, because she knows to time it after the staging is complete. So there's things you can take in-house that can help you control the process. So you don't have walking in and the cleaner is still there because they're not done, or it wasn't done at all, because you're controlling that piece of it as a benefit to the client working with you, that you'll take that on. It also is a benefit to you because now you're ensuring that these elements are being done. The photography, they take pictures from the real estate perspective, but that, person could also take pictures for your staging business, some of the close-ups and so forth. That would be really helpful. In your manuals, you also have preparing effective proposals as an article I wrote. So just again, goes through the different steps, the different elements you might have in there. And then there's a sample invoice form here, which you could, utilize, create. And then there's an interview with Barb. So that, again, you would read that on your own. Most common mistakes that ASPs make. We go through this somewhat in the masters, but this is mostly what it's about is communication, is you read through the list. They didn't communicate. They didn't set their policies. So they didn't do things up front. Let me tell you how I work. And so they run into challenges that they had. So you could read through those. And then there's an article on staging and disclosures. So from a legal perspective too, you might get asked to hide something. I don't know if you guys discussed it on the first day or not, so I'm going to address it here. You might get asked to hide something with staging, a flaw in the property. And as a stager, you need to be really careful not to be hiding something that's a known flaw that the seller knows about, but if they have not disclosed it in the documents so that the buyer would be aware of it. That could be, I've been asked to hang it like a big hole in the wall. Can you just hang a piece of art over there, or a big stain in the carpet? Can you just put an area rug over this? And because they want to hide it from the potential buyers. I could get in trouble for hiding it if I don't have the disclosure. So I'm more likely to say I was going to put an area rug there anyway, but since there's a flaw, or I could do something, I would like to see the disclosures that has been revealed to the potential buyer, because I don't want to get in trouble for being accused of hiding a flaw. I never was really asked that question in California, because California is a very litigious state. The contracts were written for the seller in California. The contracts in Colorado really are written for the buyer. It benefits the buyer. There's 7 times a buyer can get out of the contract here. And so I have been asked, they don't do inspections here. They don't do pre-inspections. We always did in our California, because I wanted to know what I was in for. I wanted to make the repairs, address things up front, be able to say, this is an inspected home. We've already addressed all the concerns, so that wouldn't be a hang up as the transaction moved forward. But whatever the inspector finds, you have to disclose. So for those reasons, most of the homeowners here, they don't do pre-inspections when they're selling. It's basically, if the buyer figures it out, great. If that inspector finds it, great. If not, I'm not saying. And they'll say, not to my knowledge. They can say, not to my knowledge. And we rented a house that had a flood in the basement, and it was molded. And so they were, repairing it, and took them forever to get it done. I kept asking, like, when can my son use this bedroom that we're paying to rent that we have no access to because you haven't done the repair? So we rented that for a year, and then moved to another property. And so my husband had left a box of like his geodes there or something. And then I had a delivery that went to that house by mistake. So the owner called me, who had purchased the property, and they had done all this remodeling. He goes, let me take you through the house. I'm like, gosh, it looks so nice. And then we went down in the basement, and I smelled, I go, God, it still smells sort of mildewy down here. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, didn't you know about the big flood that came through the wall here behind the window? And he goes, no, that wasn't shared with me. And I said, I have pictures. And the only reason I was being like that is because the homeowner, the landlord we rented from, he was a total jerk. I mean, he was like, he made threats. I tried to get a restraining order against him. He was this big man. And anyhow, so that's why I didn't feel like I owed him anything. So I'm like, yes, I have pictures, because they lied. They didn't disclose that there had been water damage in the property. So it really is, in different states, it is like the buyer beware. So please don't cover anything up that's a disclosure item.
And not all realtors are alike.
Mm-hmm.
It is the realtor responsibility to make sure that that information is disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the homeowners do not know this information. So, but if a realtor do mention, would you cover this up? I would put him on check.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would.
Yeah.
That's not legal.
It's not ethical.
It's not ethical. It's just not ethical. And just put him on check. It's because then it falls on you.
Yeah.
So.
And then sometimes people think, staging is not condition. That was one of the staging sayings. So houses that might have issues of repair, that would be disclosure items, things that are flaws in the property, you can still stage that property. It's not like we just do the ones that are perfect shape. So every house deserves to look its best when it goes to the show. And so, but you're going to use your judgment and make sure that, people aren't saying, well, I'm not going to stage this house because it has so many conditional items that need to be addressed. It's not worth staging. Every house is worth staging, because staging is presentation. It grabs the emotions. The condition are issues of repair or age. So that doesn't mean the house doesn't need to be staged. All right. And then there's an article on vacant home staging. So kind of walking you through the process again, where you might be able to, what you might add to your inventory. And then there's an article on green home staging, eco-friendly. So as the, eco-friendly movement continues to grow, there's actually eco-broker designations. Agents will have those. If you're going to do an eco-friendly staging, you're using like real cotton, not synthetic fabrics, jute rugs, real plants, things like that. So we've done these for a couple of builders, but that kind of walks you through that process. And then the home staging calculator is here. This is a spreadsheet, it's an Excel spreadsheet, but it totals. So this is actually, you can download this in the Staging University. And what it does is the return on staging investment. So you could actually put in you could do an estimated mortgage, just for sake of example, but you could also put in your staging totals, the actual numbers in there. And then don't forget to add in if the days on market are on average 89, you're going to have at least one price reduction during that time period. So you need to add that in to get the proper statistic, the proper ROI on the staging calculator. But that's on the Staging University. You'll be able to download that. And then this on page 41 is all the recommended tools for your staging kit. So it's, nails and screws, pens, pencils, magic markers, picture hangers, hammers, staple gun, etc. You can see there's a lot of stuff on here. So I have two different toolkits. You can get ones that are like even the caddies with wheels to have all your things, but you really got to think about, what do I need on site? Because there's nothing worse than needing something and not having it, and then having to go shopping and find it. And that just is a time killer. And then our favorite shopping places. We just made a list of some places you might find things to source. Target used to be a really good predictor of color trends because they were kind of ahead of the curve. But you want to go and just kind of see what's out there. I didn't, for example, invest in anything gold in my market as far as an accessory until I saw it hit the stores. And it took a good solid 2 to 3 years from the time it hit the West Coast to reach us here, to where I saw the first gold faucet in a house. It took that much time. So the trends, they tend to start on the West Coast and kind of migrate east. As far as the furniture and design, property trends. So things that are happening on the West Coast, they started bringing those colors in much sooner. And then I didn't want to start adding that in until I thought, is this going to take off here? Is it going to be something that I'm going to see more of? As soon as I hit the stores, I started investing in some of those pieces. And you can mix metals. You can do copper with gold, with silver, with black. You know, there's you want to have at least the metal represent at least 3 times in the room, like in a kitchen. Somebody can have poles that are one color, but you could have a lighting fixture that's some other color. You can mix metals if you need to. So don't be afraid to put a silver object with a gold object in your staging. You can mix the tones. All right, let's take lunch, and when we come back, we will do talk about making some money. So I show about 6 after. So come back to me at 35 after the hour, or 40 after. I'll give you till 40 after. So we'll have about 34 minutes for lunch.
1 o'clock. Hey, Jenny, you said 40 after. So okay. I will probably have to at 2 o'clock. I'm going to jump off because
Okay.
I'm going to take the IHAS global call.
Yes. Thank you.
And then I come back.
Okay.
Okay.